Hello, everyone. We are just waiting for more attendees to join our parent university. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join our parent university with the topic of self-regulation. I am going to introduce our presenter, Ms. Priscilla Comer.
Hello, everybody. Good night.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Estamos a punto de comenzar. Esta reunión será grabada y también cuenta con la interpretación al español. Si usted quiere escuchar en el idioma de su preferencia, vaya hasta abajo de su pantalla y presione en el icono de la tierra y escoja el idioma de su preferencia. Good afternoon. También tenemos interpretación con lenguaje de señas en inglés. Good afternoon, everybody. We are about to get started. We have simultaneous interpretation in Spanish. If you want to listen to this presentation in Spanish, go to the bottom of your screen, click on the icon that looks like the earth, and select the language of your preference. We also have ASL language interpretation, and this session will be recorded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariana. Priscilla, whenever you are ready to get started, we're good to go.
Sounds good. So hi, everybody. I'm Priscilla Comer. Again, I'm going to start sharing my screen as well, just so that you can share and then present. Okay, so Monica, can everybody see now?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so everybody, welcome to the Zones of Regulation Parent University. Tonight, we're going to be focused on using self-regulation strategies at home. I'm really glad to be with you guys tonight. Mrs. Cisneros, or Nicole Cisneros, who I've been working with all year, and I'm sure you guys have seen in our Zones of Regulation videos, will also be here to provide support, especially during our question and answers. Just so that we can better support our families. But yeah, so we will be focusing on using self-regulation strategies at home. And yeah, so let's start. So I just wanted to do a little summary, a presentation agenda. So one of the things that we will be covering is we're going to have we're going to define self-regulation, have a brief summary of the zones of regulation, how we have implemented the zones during distance learning, some strategies that we can use at home, especially through hybrid learning, because I know some of our kindergartners have already been back and our first graders are coming back soon. And, you know, as students are sprinkling in, as grades are sprinkling in, there's going to be a lot of that transition. And, you know, I'm also going to point out some resources provided throughout the presentation, and there'll be links to those resources. I'm not sure how accessible the presentation will be after this, but if not, I'm sure I can get those resources to you guys afterwards. So before we get started, I wanted to take a little bit of a pre-survey, just so that we get an idea of where everybody is at. And I think Ms. Solorio will be able to do that. But the questions that will be asked are, or the statements that will be answered are, I use the zones of regulation language at home. I am familiar with zones of regulation, self-regulation strategies, and I am comfortable implementing calming/self-regulation strategies at home. And this is just to get an idea of where everyone's at right now. So the first one should be popping up. I use the zones of regulation language at home. Ooh, this is very exciting. I don't think I've ever used the polling in this before, so it's nice to see it change as people are answering this. We have a couple of people left, but we're already getting a really a nice varied spread of people who have either from never to often using the zones language. So it's good. There's hopefully going to be a little something for everybody. So. Okay, so I think that this means that this is the ending of the poll. So I'm just going to go over the results really quickly. So I use the zones of regulation language at home. 2 out of 8 or 25% said never. 1 out of 8 said rarely. 2 out of 8 said sometimes. And 3 out of 8 said often. So there's really a lot of variety in using the zones of regulation language. Hopefully after this, and when we gain familiarity, that'll change. Oh, awesome. So the next question is popping up. So I am familiar with the zones of regulation strategies. Awesome. So we have some results for this too. 4 out of 9 disagree. 2 out of 9 are feeling neutral about it. 2 out of 9 agree, and 2 out of 9 strongly agree. So that's also a really good variety. Oh, last one. So I am comfortable implementing calming / self-regulation strategies, at home. So that'd be strategies in there, but yes. I mean, and this could be in any way, like you've tried it before, or you're looking forward to trying it and are comfortable with the idea of trying it as well. Awesome. So for that one, 2 out of 10 disagree, 6 out of 10 agree, and then 2 out of 10 strongly agree. And that is our last question for our pre-survey, but thank you so much for participating and letting me know where you are at this time with these questions. Thank you. To close that. Hopefully that was okay, but okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so what is self-regulation? Self-regulation is the ability to monitor and manage your energy states, emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in ways that are acceptable to produce positive results, such as well-being, loving relationships, and learning. And I know this is like a big definition of self-regulation. But what I love about this is that it really defines the fact that it's able to manage your energy states. Like, we all have different energy states, but it's really more about focusing on how you react to those energy states, or how you react to your thoughts. Because there is no real bad emotion. So this is just, how can we better manage through that. But and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we summarize zones of regulation. But other things that or other definitions are just regulating one's sensory needs, emotions, and impulses. And we really want to focus on this, because when students' energy levels are heightened, it really does affect their social, emotional, or behavioral engagement. You get that with inability to pay attention, or maybe having big reactions to problems, and not being able to regulate through that. And then some examples of self-regulation in the classroom and at home. And this, at school, it's waiting for your turn when other students are speaking, playing, interacting in any way. And I think you can really see that in our kiddos, especially now during Zoom, when they have to wait to unmute themselves. You almost see the excitement kind of coming out. And I feel like this is a good example of them either having to regulate through that, or really just seeing how they struggle through it. But listening to instructions, following directions, and initiating tasks independently. This is more of a behavioral sense, being able to manage and organize your thoughts and your focus so that you can get through that. And transitioning between playtime and learning time, just having the ability to have that shift. And at home, I just wanted to add, those parallel examples as to how you might be seeing it at home. So blurting out when parents are having a conversation, switching from in-person to distance learning, and especially having that shift back in general, but also with the fact that we're splitting 2 days in and 2 days or 3 days in a different environment. And then paying attention to Zoom lessons when your toys are around. And this is a big one that I think that kiddos have struggled with, just because I don't think they've ever been in a school where TV or video games or even YouTube videos are so readily available now, right? And that's the reality for a lot of our kiddos right now. So just to summarize a little bit, to provide a little summary of what the zones of regulation are. So the zones of regulation is a curriculum which is, it explicitly teaches students about self-regulation and gives them a shared vocabulary to use when expressing their feelings in a way that their peers can understand. And it's very simple. It has this approach where it can easily be, it's compared to stoplights or traffic lights, so it can be very easily understood. And in this picture, you see that it summarizes it really well, in that you have your blue zone and you have your rest area, and this represents all of the low state of alertness. You have your go, right? Your green means go, that ideal state in which you can, you're ready to learn. And then you slow down when you're in the yellow zone, because you might be a little bit more, or your state might be a little bit more alerted. And then you stop when you're in the red zone, because then you know that you have this extremely heightened state of alertness. And I'm going to go over each of these zones a little later. So I'm just giving a brief just summary of them right now. But the bigger things to take away from the zones of regulation is that all zones, or all feelings, are good, and it's okay for our kiddos to feel them, to be in those different zones. And through this curriculum, the kids are able to learn and to accept and communicate and regulate their emotions. It's not about rejecting being in the red zone. It's really about understanding when we are in the red zone, being able to let our peers and our parents and our teachers know that that's where we are at, and then you know, using those coping skills that we're learning throughout to get back to the green, or just to a more peaceful zone. So I'm just going to go over each of the zones a little bit. So this is the blue zone, and the blue zone describes that low state of alertness, such as when one feels sick, sad, tired, or bored. And you know, in this this picture, you're saying in the blue zone, a kiddo is expected to be running a little bit slow. Your brain might be moving a little bit slower. It might be harder for you to concentrate. It might be, you know, you might be too sad to focus, or sick. So some of each zone is kind of paired with these tools that we can use, although they do. Yeah, not like, some tools are very generalizable. Some of the suggested tools are being able to take a break, talk to an adult, ask for a hug, or listen to music. And you get that variety of like slowing your body down so that it rests, and also, or heightening it up just so that you can, you know, make yourself a little bit more in a different state of alertness by listening to happy music and being able to put yourself in a different zone. And then we are moving on to the green zone. And the green zone means go, right? Everything is good to go. It describes a regulated state of alertness. A person may be described as calm, happy, focused, or content when in the green zone. This zone is typically the ideal zone to be when completing homework and being social. I know that we always, or teachers in our school always make sure that kiddos can say that they're in the green zone before they're starting something big, like having to listen to a story, or when having to transition, and just making sure that you have that check-in with your students, especially when you're starting homework or starting something that might be a little bit harder for them to approach. But yes, this is the zone of highest control. This is where a student, you know, can learn, listen, work hard, and experience expected behaviors, and really understand what is being asked of them. And then the yellow zone describes a heightened state of alertness. A student may be experiencing stress, frustration, anxiety, excitement, silliness, nervousness, confusion. The yellow zone has so many emotions linked to it. I think that I've spent a lot of time in the yellow zone, or teaching my kiddos a yellow zone, just because of that. But it's also a sensory zone as well. So students might be feeling wiggly, squirmy, or sensory seeking. For the yellow zone, I like to focus on the fact that, you know, this is where I like to state most that all zones are good zones. I like to give the example that if you're running around outside in the park or playing a game in a field, and you're being a little bit more competitive, and you know, you have that heightened state of alertness, it's okay to be in the yellow zone. It's okay to experience those emotions. They might not be classroom emotions all the time, but you know, they're perfectly good emotions, especially since the yellow zone does have a lot of different emotions tied to it as well. And last but not least, and yeah, a student has some control. In the yellow zone, it's when you start letting them know, you're like, oh, I need to take caution. I need to be careful. I need to be a little bit more mindful and try to figure out how to get back to the green if I need to. Some of the tools that are linked to it are taking a break, getting a drink, walking, or just like just what I did right now with my thoughts being like, hey, is this an okay time for me to be in the yellow zone? This is this is what a student would call their inner coach, their inner thought that kind of, I don't want to say that kind of supports them through those self-regulations, through that self-regulation. Okay. And then the red zone, it describes extremely heightened state of alertness of very intense feelings. A student might be experiencing anger, rage, explosive behavior, panic, terror, or elation. So a student has a loss of emotional control and is not in control of one's body either. So, at this point, it's like, you need to stop, take a break, and then try to use some of these tools, deep breathing, and we'll learn a little bit later about the size of the problem and how to have that conversation with our kids. Just run at this point, just try to figure out how we can get ourselves back to a more calming state, and then or take a break. I feel like taking a break works for everything, but yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure how to check about questions, but just because I'm moving into zones of regulation videos, I wanted to check in with Monica to see if she wanted to chime in with anything before we move on.
There are no questions at the moment, but just a reminder to all attendees, you are able to type in your questions in the chat, and then I will read them to our panelist, Priscilla.
Good. So zones of regulation, some of this is being covered. Hold on, let me just move that. Oh no, yeah. Zones of regulation videos. So below is a summary of the zones of regulation videos for your reference. Use this video. Oh, so I just wanted to put those in here, the list of them. And we have copies of them, and I'm pretty sure they're also posted on Canvas, but Mrs. Narrows or Nicole and I have been recording zones of regulation videos for our kiddos all year. So we have a really good library of different topics that we cover. And I also linked or paired a video with a calming strategy or a self-regulation strategy and on my slides as well. But some of the things that are good to review with your kids if you want to start implementing that language is we have a check-in video, like how to do a check-in on using zones language. We have calming strategy videos. We have mindfulness videos. We actually have a size of the problem video. So if you want to incorporate that into your home, rewatching that with your kiddo might make it simple for you to be able to do that and explain that to them. But yeah, I just wanted to leave this list up here for your reference, just in case you guys want to start or review anything with your students.
We have one question, Priscilla. What can a parent do when a child refuses to take a break and keeps on raging?
Okay. I think that with that, and Mrs. Narrows, you can also jump in if you have any suggestions at that point. But I think that the best thing that a parent can do at that point is model that calming down behavior. Keep themselves as calm as possible as they're trying to talk to their kid through that. Just because a lot of the time, if you model and then tell them how they're feeling, saying things like, student, I can see that you're in the red zone right now, that you are feeling angry. I see that your fists are are clenched, and just trying to mirror as much as, or letting them know as much as that. And then also think of the coping strategies. Like, I think at this point we should take a break, or just going through the list of those toolboxes to kind of just support them through that, and just keeping everything, the wording, very simple, so that they can kind of react to that as well. But Nicole, if you wanted to add anything at this point.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Priscilla. So I was going to add to what you said, and I was going to say, when our students are in this heightened state of alertness and they're so very upset, a lot of times in the classroom when I was teaching zones, it's kind of too about waiting them out and waiting until they are calm enough to receive the message. And I think using giving simple directions is important at this time, but kind of waiting until the student has calmed down enough to where you think they're ready to use a strategy or ready to talk. And so for me, it's kind of a matter of waiting for that to happen and then modeling the behavior and being patient. And there's just letting the student know that you're there with them physically and emotionally, even if you're sitting quietly next to them, waiting for that to pass.
I love that addition. I think it's a really good good thing to meet the student where they're at.
I think meeting them where they're at, and then given their age, they're 5 and 6 years old. Like Priscilla said, we always have to be patient and meet them where they're at, and that after an amount of time, they will be ready to take in the message, and when they've gotten that out of their body. But it's just kind of letting them work that out, of course, in a safe way. So in my classroom, if a student is upset like that, we might have a break space already prepared, and we might have practiced this already. And I will ask the student and gesture to the break space, giving them space. Let's go take a break. Let's go to your break space. And so usually if I know I have a student who's going to have these big reactions where their body gets going and then they have trouble listening, because that's where their body is at, I'll try to set up a break space ahead of time and get them moving there so that they're, away from their table. Maybe nothing is going to get, pushed off of the table, and they're kind of in a safe place too to express that feeling until they're ready to return and come back to the group and listen. I think that's important too. But of course, with distance learning, we are not in the classroom and we don't have that break space set up and established, but maybe that's something important for home too. So thinking about, okay, if my child does have these big reactions and I know that, I can establish a quiet, calming break space. And if you can't get your child over to the break space, that's okay. I would say just be patient, wait them out, give them simple directions, stay with them. And when they're ready to listen, give them their next step direction and maybe give them a calming strategy at that point.
There was one comment that came in through the chat. This parent has 2 children, and when they're in the middle of a zone discussion or executing a tactic, it seems the other child starts escalating the situation. Often her voice, this parent's voice, has to raise in order to de-escalate the situation, and it's not a good feeling to raise their voice. Taking a break can help, but this parent also wants them to eventually just walk away when the children are teenagers.
And that's I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later on, but that's kind of why it's so important that right now we start that practice. I love that you're having these conversations with your kids right now. They're younger and they're still developing those skills. And I really do feel like if you guys keep having these conversations, that will eventually those will eventually develop enough so that they'll become more natural to them. But I know initially establishing anything can be a little bit frustrating. So just making sure that you keep meeting them where they're at and having that conversation very honestly with them. You know, I can see that you're getting a little bit more frustrating, or I can see that, you know, you're moving from one zone to another one. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Especially, and I know that, you know, once they're that heightened, you're not having that conversation with them. But, you know, try to, through those conversations, try to figure out when it starts happening. Because it is a learning experience, both for you and for them. Once you can figure out, you know, when it's starting, you can bring that awareness to them, and hopefully that will give you a little bit more time to work with. Okay. So I'm just going to start summarizing those self-regulation strategies to use at home. And if at any point you guys want to pause, or Mrs. Narrows as well wants to add anything, let me know. I know it's a little bit harder for us to be not cooperative, for us to like work together or see each other's like cues to ask questions, but as much as possible, just let me know. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do to cover is using zones language and daily check-ins. Just being able to start establishing that. I wanted to show a video of, and this is an official zones of regulation video, and I just really liked how creative this person was in establishing the zones of regulation check-in. But you know, it is a really big thing to have that check-in readily available and even start your day with it. But let's watch the video first, and then after a little bit, I can talk a little bit more about what I'm referring to. So hopefully this.
This is the interpreter. Are there captions?
Oh, I think there are. I've seen it with the captions. But if they're lagging, I can.
It's fine if there's not. I was just curious.
I'm Leah Kuipers. I'm the creator and author of the Zones of Regulation. And today I want to share with you some ideas on how you can make your own Zones of Regulation check-in for you and your family while we are doing distant learning. So step one is watch this video, and you're already doing that. And I've included with this checklist that you can go through each of the steps of how to create your own zones check-in at home. In step two, I want you to think about what you want your zones visual to look like. Maybe you just use the handout that we've included for you. You can color in the 4 zones and use a Post-it to represent each person in your family so that they can be checking in. Maybe you want to use Legos and create a Lego character to represent each person in the family. Maybe you're going to use magazines and put together a collage. Be creative and take a moment to brainstorm what's going to work for you and your family. In step 3, you're going to be gathering your materials to create your check-in. You might think about getting scissors, glue, maybe magazines, Legos, paper clips or clothespins to put your name on, maybe Post-it notes. So I'll give you a moment to do that, and you can press pause, and we'll come back together once you've got everything together. In step 4, we are going to be doing the creating. When you create your zones check-in, make sure you have each of the 4 color zones shown, as well as a way to represent each person in your family. You might even want to include a pet. I'm going to go get my family and get some help in creating our zones check-in for our family here at our house. So let's go. Next, W. What do you think about that turtle?
He's in the blue.
I think so too.
We have the blue.
How are they feeling?
Maybe bored or exhausted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So here's Libby, no dog. And here's Craig, the crayfish.
In step 5, we're thinking about where is an easy place to have our zones check in. Maybe it's in your kitchen, maybe your living room, someplace you spend a lot of time so that people can check in throughout the day.
Lose them.
Okay, so I wanted to pause it there just because that's the last step, and then afterwards they're just showing a couple other examples. But what I liked about this video, the breakdown is important as well, but the fact that everyone in the family has an icon and it's something that is in their walls. This is normalizing the zone, especially now that your kiddos are expected to learn from home. Having those tools, kind of like in a classroom, in the classroom you have your classroom rules posted, we have our zones posted, having that visual representation for kids and that visual reminder and that, check-in every day it's a great way to start adding that language. Let me just go back to my Oh, I'm not going to play this one. I just added it to the slides. This is just the example check-in video that Mrs. Narrows and I recorded, just so that you guys have an example of how to add that language. Let me just, can't seem to be able to, there. Going back to that. Awesome. Having a couple technical difficulties. Thank you for hanging in there. But just like that, having that be incorporated into their everyday language, their everyday checking, and normalizing it, especially since it's easier to bring up the zones when a kiddo is in the red zone, when they've already had enough practice implementing it into their lives when they're in the green zone, right? And also another thing that you're working on with your kids is something that previous parents' comments brought up, just identifying triggers and starting to talk to your kids about those things that might be triggering situations. I just added a definition of a trigger. So an irritant that might cause them to lose some control and pop out of the green, just to have it there. But yeah, just trying to go throughout their day and saying things like, oh, I noticed that this might put you a little bit in the yellow zone. This might be something that might make you feel a little bit frustrating, and just working through that so that as they're hearing it from you, they can start identifying it in themselves. Yep. Nope. There you go. Okay. So another thing, and Mrs. Narrows touched upon this earlier, and I'm really, really grateful, but creating a calming corner and relaxation time. So it's important to incorporate these calming strategies, not just as tools, but really in everyday life and having that practice. Just like I know everybody is incorporating things like sight words that you practice every day, and you do your math assignments every day, making sure that you incorporate that time to be relaxed and to get to know all of these calming tools and figure out which one works for you and which one you can identify with. having that every day is very invaluable for students. I have some examples of what little simple calm corners could be: a beanbag chair, teepee, adding calming lights, having a device to listen to calming music, having them identify with that space and make it their own. In one of the pictures, it actually has some calming strategies and visual reminders of those in the calming corner, so that they're always easily accessible. And adding books, fidgets, and stuffed animals that are calming to kids, and making sensory boxes together. I know that some of the kids that I've been working with, they've gotten really well at identifying what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Because, not every fidget or not every calming strategy is created equal for our kiddos. So just keep trying different things. And then incorporating mindfulness exercises into every day. I know Go Noodle has, and it's linked on here, but Go Noodle is a website that has, it has different things, but they've started having flow videos. And this takes kids through a mindfulness exercise and calming exercise in a way that they can understand and identify with. And Go Noodle also has both of these videos in English and in Spanish. So that's something that you guys can do in those languages at your comfort. And just use them as calming, as a calming sequence. And later on, I'm going to talk about schedules and visual schedules, but adding this, not just when your kiddo is in a different zone, but every day. I used to have a teacher that I worked with that after recess would do a flow video as a transition. So the kids would go from recess to flow to, like, I think it was like daily news, but whatever their next activity was. And it's a really great way to transition and for your kids to take a break throughout the day.
Thank you, Priscilla. Can I add to what you said?
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I also wanted to add that when it comes to creating a calming corner in your own house or in your own classroom, use what you have. So in the beginning, I think 3-4 years ago, when I started at Albert Einstein, the Zones program was brand new. And we wanted to create a calming corner, but we thought about what we wanted and we were thinking of, ordering everything, and we just didn't have it. So use what you have, especially for kindergartners. I know that kids are happy with a pillow on the ground, a blanket, a comforting object that they like. Keep it nice and simple. And you can designate anywhere that's quiet and, kind of darker and comforting as your relaxation corner. So I would say, don't feel like you need to order these big, nice bean bags. It took us a few years when we were in person to get to that place where we used to have a little tent, a little bean bag. It was very well put together. And of course, we don't have that now, but in the beginning, I want you guys to know that we just started off with some pillows or maybe even a chair. And that's what you can start off with as well. Just a familiar object, the chair, and just kind of create your own space the way you want to.
That's an amazing thing to add, Nicole, just because it is, and it really is more about what your kid, what your student will feel safe with and identify with, and what'll make them calm. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I agree, Priscilla, and that can be familiar toys that you already have, and more or less, introducing the calming area and the toys. So these are our toys for the calming area. This is our chair that we're going to use. So when we need to calm down, we can go to this break area. And then as a parent, physically modeling that. And when I was starting out Zones and I would teach the expectations of the break and the calming zone. And I would even show them with my own body. I could say something like, you know, I might be feeling upset right now, so I'm going to ask for a break. I'm going to go over to the calming zone. If I'm ready, I can take some deep breaths, and I would demonstrate laying down on the beanbag or just sitting on the chair, nice and relaxed. And we used to have timers, so I would get my timer and I would set it and then kind of model something like that. And I also want to say that bringing something like a timer into the relaxation zone could be good. But with our timers, you know, that's something too that like you teach your kids or your students how to use the timer. When the time is up, or you know, you can come out of the break space. Are you ready? Or they might need some more time. Not to say that you want it to be punitive and you want them to stay in that space until the timer's up, but for some students and some kids, it is regulating to have a timer and to see that time tick down, and then they might say like, oh, I need more time, I need a longer break. So that's a timer is something that you can incorporate and play with as well.
Mm-hmm. It also is a good way to like put a physical sound or a visual to a time to self-reflect, right? You know, the timer goes off and then I think, am I ready? How does my body feel, right? Just like Mrs. Nero said, not punitive, but really asking yourself, am I ready or do I still need more time in my calm space? Thank you. And then, so with that is adding zones breathing exercises. This is also a really great tool to incorporate in your home. And this is good because it's not creating a calming space. So like we can where it's not as movable, right? It's actually just strategies that you can use anywhere really. So like at the grocery store, you know, just so being able to start practicing those. And this could be something that can be easily incorporated to any calming time that you might have. You know, if you do choose to adopt some of those flow videos afterwards, you know, using some of these breathing exercises. So with Lazy 8, making sure that you have your kids show you their finger and then follow the 8 and then breathe in. And then once you get to the star, breathe out, and using those simple things, those visuals. I still have my kids do that whenever they're using their calming strategies, even in a practice, like everybody's in the green, but you know, just having that creating that muscle and that memory and that connection, it really grounds them.
Yeah, and Priscilla, to add to what you are saying, this breathing exercise is one of the most effective strategies for our students to get their body in a more calm state, and they really like doing it. So even at first, if a student isn't quite so sure about strategies and isn't sure about breathing, like once we practice that and they feel the effect, I've never met a student who doesn't not feel relaxed by the breathing activities. They tend to, our 5 and 6 year olds, our kindergartners, really tend to connect well with the breathing exercises. So if you're thinking about a strategy to use, I would start with the breathing exercise as a strategy.
Mm. And I put in other ones just in case. Lazy 8 is just cute. Kids tend to, like Mrs. Nero said, they tend to identify with it because it's like a really cute way of like, see this 8s usually stand up, but this one is trying to calm down, so it's lying down, right? So it's something that's really cute for them to do. One of the things that kids also like, it's smelling the flower, right? And blowing the pinwheel. So just any cute way that you can incorporate breathing, especially when you're first doing it and kids might feel a little bit more vulnerable. They might feel it's a little silly. This is a good way of making it fun and having them practice at the same time. And then they'll say, oh, wait, I did feel better, right? After the check-in, you say, was this useful? How do you feel now? And they do, like, even as I'm practicing the breathing for you guys, I already feel a little bit calmer, right? So yeah, it's a good, an easy tool to start practicing. And then creating a coping skills toolbox. And I know that in the video that I showed earlier, they had a sample of it in the wall. But this is as much, you know, physical things, like actually, you know, some parents actually buy a little box and they put like the calming stuff in there, just like Mrs. Narrows mentioned earlier, just the things that you have, right? You have a box and then those are your calming toys, but also making sure that you write down any, you know, non-physical tools that we can use in our box. This is the official toolbox that the Zones of Regulation curriculum has for us. It has a section for each zone that a kid can be in, and then has some suggestions as to some tools that you can put in your box. One of the big things I like to tell parents is, you know, when you're filling out this toolbox, make sure you also practice with your kid, with your students, and see what works and what doesn't. And, you know, talk about your toolbox a lot, you know, in every state. Oh, let's go use a coping strategy from our box. And then afterwards, once your kid is back in the green, you can say, did you feel like that coping strategy worked? Is this something that we should keep on our box? And always keep updating it and, you know, editing it based off how your student reacts to those coping strategies. But yeah. And then a big one to do is the size of the problem. And I'm sure Mrs. Narrows will also have a lot of things to say about this. The size of the problem is a lesson that we teach. And it's really identifying or having kids identify what the size of each specific problem can be. First, we are actually giving or labeling examples to specific sizes based off what, you know, our expectations are. And then we pair those later on to reactions. So just really saying the size of your reaction should match the size of the problem. And then each of those definitions also comes with expectations as to how we should be feeling, how long the problem will last, and things that our kids can do within that problem. I'm just going to cover a couple of them so that you can get an example of that list, those lists that we tell kids, or the conversation that we have with kids. So a tiny problem or a glitch, it affects 1 to 2 people. It's not dangerous. It doesn't last long, and kids can ignore or solve quickly. So an example of this would be, you aren't first in line, or you dropped something, right? So just making sure you tell your kiddos that within that, with that size of problem, the expected reaction would be like either an ignoring or being able to just quickly use a coping mechanism to solve that. But it's the order that it goes in. For a medium problem, it can affect 3 to 5 people, will only affect you for 1 day or less, and may involve a small injury or upset feelings, may need an adult to help. And then examples would be, you fell, someone made fun of you, and so on and so forth, and making sure. So now the kids know the difference between your tiny problems and then your medium problems. And for this one, or anything that's like it, they can say, oh, wait, maybe I should be getting help from an adult. This is a little bit bigger than something that I can try to handle by myself. And then, so then you have your huge problems. So impacting large groups of people are dangerous or emergencies, can take a long time to solve, may need a plan with many steps, definitely requires help from adults. And examples are fires, car accidents, hurricanes. And I know that bringing these huge problems can seem very like, why am I talking to my kids about these huge problems? But it comes in really handy, when you're saying, well, this is a big reaction. Is this a big problem, right? So when you're using that as a comparison, it's good for them to have an idea of what a big or a huge problem is, what that actual definition is.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, Priscilla, that we use the same exact conversation, the same exact method at the middle school as well. So this is something that, they start at the elementary school and we continue it when they get to the middle school.
That's really great to hear. But yes, I actually still use it with my third, my fifth graders, and I've used it at the middle school that I previously had my practicum site in. It's good, and it's also good because since it starts in kindergarten, it's something that they already identify. Those definitions are sealed in by the time they're older, and then they once you bring it up, they're like, oh, well, maybe it's not. It does get kids thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Priscilla, I like how you said it gets students thinking about their feelings, their reaction, and then in context to the size of the problem. And at first, when we're just starting this out in kindergarten, we're introducing the zones first. We're developing that vocabulary, teaching the zones, and then we build up to size of the problem. And I think once kids have a good foundation for the zones, it's a good time to introduce size of the problem. And for my third graders, when I started zones when they were in kindergarten. They've really, they still use the size of the problem, even though that's not something that I check in with them about every day. We still talk about the zones, but I have not really done size of the problem this year. And yet I still hear that in the classroom. So thinking about their development from kindergarten to third grade, and then hearing that the middle school uses this as well. I think that's really wonderful for our students and really gives them, that understanding and the way to describe their feelings. And two, thinking about my language learner students, I love that the zones of regulation is big on supporting our language learner students. So that's also wonderful because it gives our students accessibility to the zones and to size of the problem, and that's powerful as well.
And then setting expectations for at-home learning. And for kindergarten, this to me is just a lot of visuals, just because, when you're that young, those expectations have to either be repeated often, or they need to be like in a form where when kindergartners can follow that. Just making sure that we understand that, you guys are all parents, so our kindergartners have a little bit of that, attention span that's not fully there yet. So just making sure that when you're setting expectations for school and home time, you have visual timetables, time schedules. And I know that the kindergarten team, and I think the first grade team as well, they provide visual schedules that have like actual pictures on them. A lot of my parents have started printing those out and then just putting boxes right next to them so that kids can check mark them, right? And just go through those physical check marks. And a good thing to note is that earlier I said that that one of the suggestions is having a time to like a relaxing time or a mindfulness time. making that schedule editable so that you can add those things, and even, you know, waking up in the morning with your student and saying, okay, so what are some of the things that we want to do today? How do you want to, like, how do you want to tackle the morning? These are some of the Zoom meetings that we have to do, but during our break time, we can choose, we have options, right? So that the kids have that buy-in, and the schedule is as much theirs as it is yours and the teachers. But yes, also, I know Mrs. Narrows mentioned the timer. This is the timer that I see the most, and my kids tend to relate to the most, just because it starts getting smaller as the time progresses. So it's, I just wanted to add that in there, just because it's a good visual reminder of how long your break times are, how long you have, and then as it gets smaller, the kids' expectation of their time ending, it's not so abrupt as they hear a sound, but they've actually been getting visual reminders of how much time they have left to their break times, or how much time they have to transition from one thing to another.
Awesome. Thank you, Priscilla. And we just had a question that I see, and it says, can you share the link to this timer? And I want to give you the name to this, or repeat the name of this timer. It's called a timed timer. I believe I got that correct. Timed timer. And if you look that up on Amazon, and I can also add that link to, because we also wanted some print offs, some links for some PDFs as well. So if you look timed timer up on Amazon, you should be able to find it. But I'll make sure to get that name. We can get that name put in somewhere so that you can, to help you remember. And then as far as your work checklists go that Mrs. Priscilla was talking about, I think checklists are really, really great in kindergarten. So you're very welcome. So even if you can print something off, that's great. Do that as soon as you can. Start with the checklist, or even create one. If you're somebody at home who doesn't have a printer, or whose printer doesn't work when you need it to, don't be afraid to get a piece of paper. Again, use what you have. Get a piece of paper, get a nice dark pen, pencil, and create a checklist. You could use stickers. You could go get some stickers and have your child, put stickers when they're done with everything. Or if you feel like you would like something printed, if you communicate to your kindergarten teacher, I know that the kinder team is really good about getting parents what they need. So I know that you guys do pickups, so I'm sure if you communicated to your kinder teacher that would like a checklist printed that you heard about from Zones, we can kind of work together to get that printed off for you, and you could come pick it up. So just to layer on some options for resources there. Thank you.
Awesome.
One of our parents is leaving. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for coming.
Also, there was a parent who was interested in the link for the timer.
Okay, so I can actually, let me pop that link in there. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do an Amazon link. Is that okay? That's usually where I get my timed timers as a teacher.
Parent said yes, thank you.
All right, give me one moment. You are welcome.
Awesome. And then, so another thing to add, and I know it's a lot of things, but I wanted to add as many resources so that if any of them identify with any parent, they have that exposure, and they can start looking, looking for those resources. And thank you so much for adding, seeking out resources right now. I really appreciate it. But so zones of regulation, bedtime stories, and this is actually a resource that I have found really useful as I'm doing my zones of regulation videos and during my groups. And I just got this straight off of the official zones of regulation website. They have examples of books that are paired with either zone concepts or the zones themselves. And there is a copy of the link, like it's or a link to the actual official document right here, just in case. But just I wanted to give some examples, and I've actually used Clark the Shark in one of my videos, but it's a good example of the yellow zone. So having that silly and impulsive behavior, and then using self-talk as a coping skill. When Sophie gets angry, really, really angry is also something I've used. It identifies triggers, calm down strategies, and painting to calm down is a specific strategy that Sophie uses. For the blue zone, chrysanthemum, sorry, is a good blue zone defining book. Coping strategies in the blue, and then talking to your parents is the specific one that they use. And I Like Myself is a good green zone book. It talks about self-esteem, being happy with and being happy with who you are. I wanted to add those summaries more so that you guys can see that summaries for each of the topic are provided in the list. So if you're looking for something specific, that list is very guiding to, it tells you what book might be best for you in specific situations.
That's good. Wow, Priscilla, you provided a wonderful assortment of books. And I think, so parents, as you're layering in these strategies and the zones and the size of the problem at home, it's a really good start to start with books. I think it's a good way to connect students. If your student is a student who enjoys reading and that's something that you do, I think starting with books to introduce something and then layering on the vocabulary and language and some projects together, that's a good start, but books are powerful to start with. And I have the link for the time timer in the chat, everyone. So you can go ahead and check that out if you're interested.
Thank you, Nicole. And then, I mean, that's it for me. There will be more questions, but before we have questions, I wanted to give a little bit of time for us to have a post survey. They're going to be the same questions or similar questions. I think I changed the wording on the first one, but just to get a sense of, if anything, just to get a sense of where you're at now. Just give a little bit more time for the rest of you guys to vote. Okay, so thank you so much for answering our poll questions. I feel comfortable incorporating the zones of regulation language at home. 1 out of 4 agree, and then 3 out of 4 strongly agree. I'm familiar with the zones of regulation. 1 out of 4, or 25%, strongly disagree. 1 out of 4 agree, and then 2 out of 4 strongly agree. And then I'm comfortable implementing calming / self-regulation strategies at home. Half agree and half strongly agree. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna close that. And so, yeah, take this time to, if anybody has any questions, my email is also posted. And if Mrs. Narrows wants to at this time put their email in the chat, if any of you guys have any follow-up questions of any resources, or if you find yourself using some of these strategies and want a little bit of support with them, feel free to reach out so that we can support in any way we can.
Yeah. And if you're one of our parents who says, okay, so I have an idea after watching this of where I might want to incorporate this into my own family, or what might be effective for my own student and family, but you're still not quite sure where to start, email one of us. And we would be happy to help you out. And you can, it's quite simple. I know that you guys have so much going on, but it's simple. You just start in the sense that you can start with, the zones and make it really fun, and then build from there. So don't feel like you're behind, or that you have to tackle zones and then size of the problem and other social emotional aspects. Take it in little bites. And I would say start the foundation with, from the beginning, with the zones of regulation, going over the different zones, and talking about the feelings. And we have some ideas for activities you can do at home too. So just please reach out to us, and any question is a good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these are little strategies that we can just help over the phone, just set something up, or email. We can support with resources, or even if you have a question on location or when to use, we're available. So just let us know. Okay, so
there was one comment. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. Another parent feels fortunate to get to know the counseling team at AEA, professional and knowledgeable, and high quality content. This was an excellent session. Thank you. Just wanted to read those comments in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Again, like I said, thank you for taking time out of your evening to learn about the zones of regulation and self-regulation strategies that you can use at home with your students. All of the links and the presentation will be posted on our website, as well as a recording of this session.
yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for all of your comments and your questions. We really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, parents and interpretation and AEA staff. Priscilla and I, we appreciate you all very much. And, parents, go ahead and email us, reach out, say hello, even if you don't have any questions. We would welcome just a hello, an introduction. And we don't get to see your students. We got to see them on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, but introduce yourself and your students. I would love to meet you and just say hi over email at the very least. And Priscilla and I also want to remind everybody that we're going live with our zones lessons, and we're excited about that. And that's going to happen Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So join us if you can. If your student has it in them to, sit through another Zoom, we would love to see them. And, we know it's tough, but the group that we saw, they were excited to be there. And, we hope to learn and make the zones as fun and interactive as we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I will end the session now. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.